Just want to welcome you back after so long. Um, this will be more of a conversation of Flesh and Blood 2.0. I'll be the last to kind of bring in the rear of opinions on James White's beautifully written announcement. There's a lot to take away from it, and I just want to have this as a conversation with myself as much as I do with you. Kind of avoided Flesh and Blood on YouTube or things like that for a couple weeks due to being busy or other elements, and really sitting back and listening to it after the fact. I had a lot to take in, kind of process, and kind of see where we are going, not only with the future of Flesh and Blood, but I guess the competitive and casual elements behind it. I wanted to begin calling myself out. It's easy. It's easier than you think. Even when you are fully attached to something, when you're watching it develop over time, and you see a game release heroes or characters that kind of, I guess, turn people away from the experience. I want to talk firstly in this first segment about my own form of negativity. And then I'm going to branch off to interpretations of aspects of 2.0. And then lastly, the reason why I'm here to begin with PvE. So let's wrap up the first two really quickly. I have to call myself out because it's very easy to be distracted and caught in a negative field. And I want to call myself out in the sense of, I think at some point, I almost felt like LSS was having an identity crisis. And plenty of people that I'm on Discord with would absolutely agree with me of being upset. It comes around the time when the Pro Tour was announced. As I've said in the past, I think a game finds success around doing multiple things well. As anyone who's ever played a TCG would tell you. You need collectors, you need investors, you need competitive players, you need casual players. You need to provide a positive experience on all four fronts. Well, Flesh and Blood's already tried to establish the collector and investor side of the game, and it might be hurting a little bit, but I think it still exists. The current step that we've been in has been the more competitive side of the game. And as I've said before, even to myself and here, take your time. LSS had to take their time, have a cornerstone, a foothold on every aspect of this, and just do it right. I would rather see PvE come out and be perfect in every way. That I could even beyond my own expectations. And that would be perfect enough for me. Whether it took 2, 5, 6, 10 years, do what needs to be done for the longevity and survival of this game. Because I do, in fact, love it that much. So you get to the announcement of the Pro Tour, and James starts talking about the exclusive things you get for going. I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. That's really cool. Like, being a citizen of the U.S., I can get to New Jersey. I can go to the event. That's actually kind of awesome to have a trophy from the first Pro Tour. Unfortunately, other people's wouldn't be able to get it. And that part kind of sucks, but being able to say something exclusive memorabilia from the moment or the experience is a really cool thing to have. However, I think in my mind, that seems like it would be something for the competitive market. Because at this point, Flesh and Blood seems to be a more competitive game, not a casual game. And so in my mind, I'm expecting some kind of alternate art staple. You don't have to go expensive like Command and Conquer or East Strike, but wouldn't that be cool? Or maybe even Sink Below, or Scar for a Scar, an alternate art form, or a cold foil version. That's what I was expecting. And then you get Yorick, and he was pretty divisive. That was the identity crisis. I looked at Flesh and Blood as a competitive game in the moment. This is your first Pro Tour, and your exclusive item you're giving away is an unplayable promo. There's multiple arguments you can make on this front. I might be out of line with this too, but there's a lot of people who want to travel to the event but can't afford to. And if there was a collectible promo for this, that you could flip to a vendor to help pay for the experience, that would be a good thing too. But in my mind, the Yorick promo just didn't make sense. It didn't identify with what Flesh and Blood was establishing right now. That's it. That's what broke me. And it's a petty thing to get broken on, but you start to question, does LSS know what they want? And then you fast forward, and you get to the 2.0 announcement. And the one thing I do want to say more than anything else, even to call myself out, is every time James speaks or writes, it all makes sense. You might not agree with it, but you understand, and you kind of jump on board with it. It's like you get into a fight at school. It's like Papa James. He's right there on the couch. You come home, you have an issue, and you talk to your parents. And you're like, this thing happened. I still understand. And with their infinite wisdom, they sit you down. They walk you through the process and understand things happen for a reason. Here's the expected scope of what we expect in the future. Are you on board with this? And every time James communicates, I become a little more positive. I've even said in the past, when the talents were first announced, it blew my mind. I was like, wait, why are we doing this? What's the purpose? What's the extent? And I read the article 3 hours later. I'm like, oh well, hell, that makes sense. But beyond that, the article is brilliant. And it helps almost christen this new age. And that's what 2.0 is. And I really wanted to call out the idea that James White wanted to put a focus on developing the casual environment, which is why I've even been here to begin with. I'm not a content creator. I make content, but I'm not one. You have these YouTubers who put dedication into this every day, every month, every week. I'm here maybe twice a year, and that's okay. This isn't my career path, my choice. Please support the content creators who entertain you every day. The work they put into this, until you've done something like this before, they mean a lot. As a side note, appreciate them for what they do. And LSS, please continue to support them the way you have in the past. But looking at 2.0, looking to break this down, I was almost hyperventilating over an idea. Does Flesh and Blood know what it wants to be? And you get to the 2.0 article, and you look at the casual section, and James White comes out to say, we haven't focused on the casual environment. With what limited resources we had, we focused on these aspects to get the ball rolling, and the cornerstone set up for the future development of this game, future expansions. And that's all I needed to hear. It was one sentence to kind of set me straight and actually get me level-headed and grounded. I'm trying not to be too emotional about my reactions to the game, but I just didn't understand it. And James, in his infinite wisdom, somehow seems to always get us there. So with this article, the one line I would want to call out, and so I don't misquote it, I'm going to look over here and figure this out. The one line that meant the most to me, and we'll go into another segment with this too, products that offer play experiences that bring fans into the adventures, conflicts, and story arcs that are happening within the world of Wraith. I call that investment. If you've ever played anything like World of Warcraft or anything else, you might not be a fan of the lore. So, funny fact, I watch a lot of YouTube every now and then. I took some time off, but I've come back with a vengeance, watching a lot more videos recently. And you see content creators, Josh, love you. George, love you too. You're fantastic. It was nice meeting you in Orlando, and the way you dedicated yourself to helping me get my PvE launched in a single day, trying to get team set up, you're a true gentleman. I understand you don't like lore. Or it's not that you don't like lore, you're not attached to investing yourself into it. So when it comes in other forms or medias, you're not invested in going out there seeking it and actually ingesting that. I get it. Time and place. My personal life has been a little different. I haven't had the free time I've wanted to put into things or hobbies like I've wanted to in the past. Things change. But I don't think you can disregard lore, because I think what sets Flesh and Blood apart from other games is that it has its own separate IP. It's a separate entity. It's not a Digimon cartoon show put into a TCG, though I have invested in that. There's nothing with diversity. Freshen yourself up and enjoy things for what they are. But I collect Flesh and Blood as a whole. But Dragon Ball Super, Pokemon, they all have multiple forms of media. They're a separate IP brought into a TCG. But now we have a TCG with its own IP that needs to be developed. And lore matters. It does. You need a cornerstone. You don't want to just have X card and Y card and you battle them because of the mechanics that come out. You find attachment to the characters you're playing, whether it's visual appeal of the art, whatever else. Art is a form of lore. Those things matter, whether you're looking towards like a story or not, or immersive experience. You might not care about the lore, but you actually do. You might not know it yet. And so that's important to the development of this game. And with them actually investing so much into it in the future, that was the best news I could have ever possibly even heard from 2.0. Now, a step away from that is the implementation of PvE being the flagship social product. You don't see me crying about that. That's awesome. Hell, I'm shitting myself with excitement. But how are we going to do this? Because if there's one thing you've seen from me, I'm definitely biased, with those right there included. I love a player-driven experience. And I've always been a proponent for the player versus player aspect of PvE. Not because of the stakes, but because of the thought that goes into the encounter. I've played Marvel Champions and other card games that have this PvE elements, but there's something about playing against a player actively plotting against you that creates a much more immersive experience. Because whatever you're fighting, whether it's a boss, villain, ultimate entity, monster, god, deity, whatever it is, being controlled and empowered with the actual threat of destruction towards the players creates a different element of the game. So from what we've seen from Flesh and Blood 2.0, it looks like the immediate detail we've received is that it will be a campaign-style setting. And I will be the first to admit, doesn't make me hyperly overjoyed, but I'm not disappointed. Because PvE works for everyone in some way or another, and everyone deserves to have a social experience. And if they want to develop it this way, I trust that they'll make it an immersive experience that even I enjoy. I don't think player versus player in PvE is the end-all be-all. It might not be necessary, but I think it's an element that ties into what Flesh and Blood actually is, the quality of the game, the decision-making. You have to fight against choices against other people's choices, and that kind of adds weight to the experience. So, if we're looking at the entire campaign setting, you can make it as short or long as you want. If I were to theorize how this will be implemented, obviously you're looking at the local game store. It has to be. It always had to be. You want to actually create foot traffic in the strongholds of what sells your product. You have to support them in some way, shape, or form. So how do you do this? Well, it's not about winning or losing, right? So we're looking at participation prizes. So we're looking at milestones. You accomplish certain factors, features, achievements, and you get rewarded. Is it something from defeating battles you get token prizes of copper, silver, gold, and you buy gear from a vendor? Is it that you defeated a challenge or an aspect of it, or a level or a chapter, and you get a loot chest that has randomized prizes within a specialized pack created by LSS? How do they implement development for this, and how do they contain and continue engagement towards being at the local game store? The article also pushes the idea of expanding experiences. And I want to kind of play off of a double entendre, or a double meaning in this sense. I think you can look at a PvE experience as one of two things. I think you can look at it as an experience with your peers, and also experience for your character. A lot of people have been theorizing that with the concept of young and old heroes, that eventually in PvE, you could start levels, chapters as young hero, developing to a certain point, acquiring so much experience, developing to the old hero to have more health for a final encounter. To me, I look at that experience in a different way. And the one thing I would ask and request, if James were ever watching this, or anyone from LSS were ever watching this, if there was any influence I could ever possibly pass off or give, the one thing I would say you never want to omit from the PvE experience is omission of a PvE element at the Pro Tour, at callings, or battle-hardened events. I think, and it's not to sit there and challenge Magic like with the Commander Zone. I don't think PvE and Commander even compute or equate. I don't think they do. Even the competitive PvP style of it, of one person piloting a raid boss versus a team of 4 or 5 players against that entity itself, there's a level of teamwork that comes with PvE that I think is an experience that's notably different from what Commander as a free-for-all is related to be. I mean, Ultimate Pit Fight definitely comes closer, but I don't want to give it that Commander title because it's not accurate. It's a social experience like Commander, but it's definitely not the same. But what I would say, if you're looking at callings, Battle Hardens, Pro Tour, the one thing that I would request is that we treat the PvE campaigns truly as an experience. Now, I'll say this again, I've rattled this off on several videos. I think there needs to be a climax. You know, you don't climb Mount Everest and not get to the peak and enjoy it for what it is. I think if you implement campaigns into game stores, I think it should be an experience for not just you and your friends, but for you and your character. And when you come to a new campaign season, like, how do we implement this? Do we actually approach it? New set comes out. We have pre-release. We have release. Next week, PvE campaign starts. Shit gets real. And you go into it, and you're duking it out, and you're learning the mechanics of the fights as you develop through the campaign. So it's naturally implementing deck building properties into the encounters. That's the experience. You're learning. And what they're doing throughout that campaign season is teaching you how to handle the final encounter when you do see it with amped up mechanics and ramped up effects. Can we please make callings special in this front for casual players? Yes, you have a competitive aspect to your game. And I'll be honest, you might already be thinking about this. I might be slow to the punch. And you might already have this under your hat. But there's something about getting your friends who've never been to a GP for Magic or anything else to go for the first time. To just have a weekend away in a different place. To actually play and experience around a whole culture of people who share like-minded ideologies like you. Who enjoy the hobby. Going to get good food, good experiences. Like, the memories you make. This is a good game bringing people together to play great games in great environments. I don't think you can ever omit that. I think GPs, callings, anything at the greater scale of this has to have some PvE element that's a climax or a culmination for a season. And even then, it might not even be about winning or losing. You sign up, get a participation prize. If you beat it, you get a special additional thing. You know, like, you get something for showing up and experiencing it. Thanks for being here. It's like going to Disney World or something. You can even call it the Everfest Fair or whatever else you want to do, like they did with the Dark Moon Fair with World of Warcraft. Like, you can implement it however you want. But don't let the experience just be an apathetic side project. Please have some element that's actively alive in the community tied to these events. Like I said, you might be doing it already. And if you are, you have my kudos and praise. But I think PvE's ultimate success always comes down to what can you do with it as an end game aspect. So with that said, I have a lot of hope towards PvE. I really do. I think it'll be a great, wonderful experience, no matter how it's implemented. Player versus environment, self-contained mechanics, a DM kind of guiding a self-piloting system. However they want to do it. Like, I'm game. I'm ready for this. On a side note, while we'll go back and say, there were elements of 2.0 that I didn't like. The first thing I will say is white borders. Ooh. That's the nicest way I can say it. Ooh. You wouldn't want to hear what I've said in the past. Not a huge fan. A lot of content creators have also talked about historic packs. I mean, do we need them right now? I don't think so. You want a hot take? We probably should release it with PvE. So when a new player base comes into the game, the new fold who actually want to experience the game in a different way, oh, hell, I need a new way to jump into this. What can I do? Got this historic pack lined up right here for you. This will catch you up for all the things you missed. Damn! And they just go for it, and they enjoy it, and they have a good time. However, devil's advocate with that, I could just imagine, like, a boat gets stuck in a canal or something, and all of our products on there, and PvE comes out, and all the new players can't get it, and they rage and riot, and they get on Facebook, and they tell us their opinions, I mean, James White could always bring it on a boat or something, but, like, the reality is, like, it could go wrong. I get it. But ultimately, I don't think these things are bad implementations. As an overall view of Fab 2.0, I'm not disheartened. I feel comfortable, and I'm happy again. I was inoculated. I feel good. I trust LSS. I trust James White. Every time he opens his mouth, I feel better. Do that more. You're awesome. You speak really well. And you have great ideas. And I think as your game is still gaining traction, the more you communicate to us, I think the more calm we will be as a culture and a player base. We'll put those pitchforks down and we'll keep our manners to ourselves. Lastly, I just wanted to kind of comment on how the PvE community's been going. Didn't really talk about this at the beginning, but I wanted to apologize for my general absence. We've been trying to build a community since back in Vegas, and Hugo's done a great job actually still trying to be active with it, commenting and engaging with people. And Hugo really is the heart and soul of a lot of the PvE, the work that he's put into it, even guiding me trying to make mine better. But I'm kind of the ass who just can't always be around. But I did want to apologize for all the people who've joined it, who've still actually stayed loyal to it, and haven't really gotten much from us. And so for that, I'm sorry. But I do hope there's a way in the future that we can utilize it in ways to help people who don't have local game stores near them. If PvE does become a thing and there's a way to kind of outsource that to get it onto the Discord to help lead things for people who need to play online because they have no local access, that would be a great thing to actually accomplish. And I hope we can do something like that someday, because it's the ultimate takeaway for PvE. A lot of people might not understand. And like George, I would say this to you. You being on a military base, knowing what mental health can be like for people, having something like this, I guess it depends on the person and how they react to things. There's something about knowing someone's always there for you. And even in my trying times more recently, having a Flesh and Blood community around me has made a difference. It really has. And that's the whole argument for PvE, is that there's always someone there. You're not alone. And there's a whole community that's always there to hold you back and keep you up and lift you and carry the weight with you. There's something, a magical experience about that. And I don't know if you know it until you've done it and you actually have that camaraderie. And maybe going to these events and actually doing things like that, just to have a casual getaway. It's not high stakes competitive coming in first place. You're just going to immerse yourself and just have a moment. It's like going to a movie or playing a game. You just need that breath taken away. And so I will say, I hope PvE's implementation can accomplish that goal of bringing peace of mind to many people around the world who sometimes just don't have it in their normal lives. That's really the biggest takeaway. And to wrap this up, I did want to say I will be going to New Jersey, and I will be doing like what I did in Vegas and Orlando. I will have my PvE modules. I will have copies of the Overlord engine with me as well. So if people want to have a paper copy to take home, they have some easy access to get those materials. But I did want to say, even in my absence, I haven't been too lame. I decided to have a little fun. There was something I saw on a post way back when that was an inspiration to making something come to fruition. And it was a new module. And I had made the Matriarch module as like a basic what-if kind of idea for PvE. If a player was in fact piloting an engine to encounter and play against players, how would you balance it? And I'll be honest, it's pretty damn hard. But I have a new version of something else that people will love and hate. But it's more of a personal choice. You'll know it when you see it. But it's been a pleasure to actually try to put it together and keep it flavorful. And I hope to see you in New Jersey to actually play that with me. Just look for me in the corner. I'll be somewhere away from all the actual structured play with a little sign on the table saying PvE. And we'll kind of do something to the side if you are in fact interested. But please keep an eye out for that. And if you're in New Jersey, I really hope to show it to you. I think you'll be quite amused. But that's all. I don't have much more to say. I think Flesh and Blood 2.0 overall was a success. James needs to keep talking and keep talking, because what he says is usually gold. It makes sense. You might not agree, but it makes sense. And so I'm going to keep avoiding competitive play because, getting my ass beat by Starvo is not really my favorite thing in the world, and so I kind of skip by.